Hi guys, hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to continue talking about the testimony of Bongani Sandisontanzi. So when he continued to speak about what happened, it's painful that what we are listening to, guys. It's so painful. So the evidence that was the testimony that he given in that court, it does not need someone who is like, yeah, in Kabi, in. No, you are not going to hear what is happening here. If you come with that mentality of, yeah, me, my brother was done, or my mother, or my father, or whatever, if you have trauma of that situation, you won't understand what is going on in that because you are coming projecting. Rather, listen to what is happening because the first experience that you heard was painful, but don't bring it to this situation whereas it's not about it. Do you understand? So that is why sometimes you look at the comments in that YouTube channel of SAPC and be like, hey, I wish my people, like African people, our South African people can understand because, yay, this can happen to anybody, guys. We're not saying they are not criminals when it comes to other matters that they did. For that, they must remain behind bars and do their time for it and learn from their horrible mistakes. Ne? But when it comes to this, it's not just about them. It's more of about the Meyiwa family because all they want is the real truth of what happened to their son. And then we have the state playing theatrics. It's so sad. Now, the witness has never claimed. What I like about Ubongani, he approached things calmly, logically, and without speculation. The witness has never claimed certainty where none existed. He has never exaggerated anything. He has never attempted to dramatize event. What he described to this court was a single unsolicited cited telephone call, nothing more. That's what he spoke about. A call from a woman who did not identify herself properly, a call that began as a casual conversation, a call that slowly drifted into vague and unsettling questions. Importantly, Ubongani Ndanzi did not testify that the caller accused him directly. He testified that according to the manner and implication of what was said, it appeared to him that she regarded him as a suspect in the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. And then that distinction matters a lot. The witness did not volunteer himself as a suspect. He did not confess at that time. He did not acknowledge involvement at that time, according to what Bongani Kininda according to what Bongani Ndanzi was giving testimony on today. And he did not, instead, he did the opposite. He told her plainly that he knew nothing about the Senzo Meyiwa case, that he did not know the place she's talking about, which are in Gauteng. He was in Rustenburg, so meaning he knows KZN and KwaNongoma and knows Rustenburg where he works. If he goes to Gauteng, that means he goes for what? He goes for shopping or whatever. I don't know. He didn't. He said he's not someone who goes to Joburg a lot yet. He knows nothing. The other thing that I noticed is that when it even reminded me, but actually, Ugandanzi is really from Emakaya, like from the villages. Because even us, Amaxhosa from Eastern Cape, if someone is in Welkom, back in the day, if someone is in Welkom, is in Rustenburg, is in all these mining industry places, we used to say the person is in Gauteng. So Nobongani Ndanzi is in that mentality, So I understand he was taken advantage of because of that mentality also. He did not know the places that were being mentioned by the lady, and that he did not recognize the narrative she was suggesting to him. That is not the conduct of a person with guilty knowledge, not at all. When the caller asked for an address, the witness did not resist. He did not evade. He did not fabricate. He just said, I live at Freedom Park in Rustenburg, so I don't know what you're talking about. He gave the address where he was openly residing, not hiding, not moving, not fleeing. And then he explained why. He wanted the conversation to take place openly, directly, and honestly, face to face, not behind anonymous phone calls. That is not concealment. He was being honest. That is him being transparent. It is common cause that he remained at that same address for weeks thereafter. He went to work, he returned home, he lived openly and predictable. There was nothing to it. So that's what he told the court. And a person who believes he has done nothing wrong does not have or does not behave otherwise. When asked about the precise numerical detail of the address, whether it was 3125, the witness did not guess. He did not tailor his answer. He told the court honestly that he could not recall the exact number. That is someone who is telling his truth. That is not evasiveness. That is restraint. Honesty in a witness is not found in a perfect record. It is found in the refusal to invent certainty where none exists. And that's something that I believe Ubongani Ntanzi did very well. And also, one number he used regularly, one number he used rarely belonged to, he gave that phone to Usiswake. We spoke about also cell phones, which got me thinking that Shukuti, these cell phones were taken by Umukhane, and Umukhane again, he looks like a corrupt cop because Ugwabini also said this man asked for 2,000 rand and I don't know anything, no sleep, nothing. No sleep, nothing. Do you understand? So he did not wait to be confronted. He did not conceal anything. He placed the information before the court so that it could be tested objectively. Well, that's not an objective court, but okay, he did what is needed and what he believed was right. That is the behavior of a witness who expects the truth to withstand scrutiny. He is not worried about that. And any into that I noticed when the court's attention turned to the 16 June 2020, there is no evidence of resistance, evasion, or flight. Ubongani Ntanzi's life changed on the 16th of June 2020. The witness was at home with another person and the same address he had always occupied. He did not attempt to disappear. He did not attempt to destroy evidence. He did not attempt to mislead the arresting officers. The court was not being asked to accept a dramatic story. It was asked to accept a simple testimony and a simple story. A man received an unsolicited call. He denied knowledge because he had none. He lived openly thereafter, and he was never arrested without having done anything to avoid that process. I mean, he was later arrested without doing anything to avoid that. Because if he was someone who was guilty, after that call he received, he should have ran away, but he did not. He did not. So when this evidence is assessed as the law requires, calmly, holistically, and without inference piled up on inference, it does not point to guilt. It points to ordinary conduct by an ordinary person caught unexpectedly in an extraordinary case, and that any case, any court that is fair, a fair court, a fair judge would know that is not proof of wrongdoing. It is proof of innocence. Ubongani Ntanzi did what he could, said what he could say under the circumstances. But this is Judge Rata's court. I don't know. So those are some of the highlights of things that happened, and the 16th June changed his life. I'll do another video talking about the 16th June and how his life changed up until now. Thank you so much. I will see you on our next video. Bye-bye.